Thank you very, very much, Shimon, for that warm introduction. It is a real pleasure and an honor for me to be here today. I wanted to start by thanking the President of the World Jewish Congress, Ambassador Ron Lauder. Thank you very much. It's great to be with you. As Shimon said, Moshe Ronan was one of the guys who exerted great moral suasion on me to get me to turn my life upside down and be here with you today. He did it, by the way, by sending one email, so that shows you what an effective guy he is. And I'm glad to be here with you, Moshe. I also want to acknowledge David Cape, the chair of CEJA. And I'm joined by one of our leading ambassadors, Marc-André Blanchard. Marc, wave a little bit. He's Canada's ambassador to the United Nations, is doing great work there. As Shimon has said, two of my parliamentary colleagues are here, Michael Levitt and Anthony Housefather. Can you guys wave too? And I'm delighted to be here with them. We've already heard high praise of someone I am honored to call my friend and teacher and mentor, and that is the very great Jewish Canadian Irwin Cotler. And Irwin is here too. Whenever I have questions about what to do in government and in politics, I do ask myself, what would Irwin do? And sometimes I double check that by just phoning him up. And I want to acknowledge the second person who really got me to be here today, and that is my very good friend of now more than 2 decades, I think, Rabbi Yaakov Bleich, who is the chief rabbi of Ukraine, and has been doing amazing work there for a long time. And as a Canadian, I claim a little piece of Rabbi Bleich because he has had a lot of support from the great Canadian Jewish community. And also, I want to acknowledge and thank for his presence Beryl Rodal, who's the chairman of the Ukrainian Jewish Encounter and who has suffered a bereavement in his family and is here nonetheless. So thank you all. Merci pour votre accueil et l'invitation de venir participer à ce congrès. En tant que ministre des Affaires étrangères du Canada, je tiens à souligner à quel point je trouve important les sujets qui sont à l'ordre du jour ici. Yesterday was Yom HaShoah. Добре, якщо хочете, можемо по-українськи так само. I've had a request from the floor to speak in Ukrainian. И тоже по-русски, если хотите. Я слышала, что есть здесь делегаты из России. But I do want to really join you in commemorating the 6 million Jews who lost their lives in the Holocaust, as well as the Romani, disabled, members of the LGBTQ community, and countless others. When Israeli Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion first inaugurated the 27th of Nisan as an annual Memorial Day, the date was chosen to commemorate the annihilation of Warsaw's Jewish community, which before the war was the second largest Jewish community in the world, second only to the great Jewish community of this city in New York. This day reminds us all, and must always remind us, that we may never forget this terrible chapter in human history, and we may never let it repeat itself or stand idly by when human rights are violated, wherever that may be. There must be no place in the world for prejudice, violence, intolerance, genocide, persecution. We've learned that lesson the hard way. Let us all say, and let's really mean it, never again. Je crois comprendre que lorsque le Premier ministre d'Israël, Ben David Gurion, a inauguré au départ le 27 du mois de Nissan comme le jour du souvenir annuel, la date a été choisie ici pour commémorer l'année antisémite de la communauté juive de Varsovie, qui, avant la guerre, était la 12e communauté juive en importance dans le monde, après seulement New York. Ce jour nous rappelle que nous ne devons jamais laisser ce terrible chapitre de l'histoire humaine se répéter ou de laisser des violations des droits de la personne incontrôlées ou qu'elles surviennent. Il ne doit y avoir aucune place dans le monde pour le préjudice, la violence, l'intolérance et la persécution. C'est là une leçon que nous avons tous apprise à nos dépens. C'est pour moi un honneur très très grand d'être invité à prendre la parole devant cette assemblée du Congrès juif mondial. I am truly honored to speak here to this gathering of the World Jewish Congress. Since its creation in 1936, this organization has proudly, bravely, and effectively fought for the rights of the Jewish people and Jewish communities around the world, and in doing so has upheld universal human rights. Our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, had the privilege of meeting with President Ambassador Ron Lauder in October last year, and he told me, I spoke to him before coming here to speak to you, he told me what an important conversation that was, and a very important conversation to talk about shared values between the World Jewish Congress and Canada, and our joint role, the joint need for us to work together in fighting anti-Semitism around the world. I also wanted to start by thanking the World Jewish Congress for your very strong statement of January this year condemning the horrific murders of Muslim worshippers in Quebec City. Thank you. That meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to Canadians. And I thought you put it extremely well, so I would like to quote to you what you said to Canada. We must not be intimidated by terrorism, but cherish our freedom, including the freedom to worship. We must defend each other, and we must look after one another. One religious community after the other, one country after the other. The scourge of terrorism won't be defeated unless we are united in our resolve to defeat it. I could not agree with you more. I thank you for that important statement, and I am so proud of the response of Canadians, very much including Jewish Canadians, to that vile attack. In keeping with the spirit of that message, I'd like to speak to you today about all that we can do to promote tolerance and inclusion and defend the rights of everyone to live their lives free of hatred and discrimination. I know this is a topic central to the agenda of the World Jewish Congress, and it's central to my agenda and to the agenda of the Government of Canada. We talked just now of the Shoah, and unfortunately, so many years later, we still see incidents of hatred against religious groups. And I'm very sad to say that Jewish people are the most likely religious group in Canada to be targeted for hate crimes. That is a shame, and it's something we have to talk about. These hate crimes can take many forms, whether it's vandalism, graffiti, hate propaganda, or racist online commentary. In my own riding of University Rosedale in downtown Toronto, the Miles Nadal JCC was recently subject to a deplorable bomb threat. So this is happening today, it's real, and we have to stand up against it. According to our most recent data, 17% of all hate incidents in Canada targeted Jewish people, despite the fact that the Jewish population is less than 1% of the Canadian population. This is totally unacceptable. The Government of Canada is committed to ensuring the safety and security of Canada's Jewish community. Yeah. And you see how great our community is. You guys all know it because you see what a great delegation we have here at this Congress. I'm so proud of them. In our most recent budget last month, my government doubled the funding for our security infrastructure program, which helps communities protect themselves against hate-motivated crimes by contributing to equipment like security cameras and alarm systems. We've worked closely with the Jewish community, including in my riding, and other affected communities to ensure that the program responds to their needs. Recent incidents are a jarring reminder for us in Canada that the inclusive and generous society we want to build is a precious and delicate work in progress, and one that none of us can take for granted. Programs like this one are important initiatives to protect the rights of all Canadians to be free to practice their faith and their culture. In Canada, we know and believe that our diversity is our strength. That is absolutely a core national value. And we as a government are therefore extremely concerned with growing xenophobia, racism, and very much anti-Semitism worldwide, rooted in the misguided belief that diversity is a threat. That's why last September, along with Israel, the United States, and the EU, Canada co-hosted a global high-level forum on anti-Semitism at the UN. That's why Canada is a proud member of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, along with 31 other states, where we promote Holocaust education and research. And that's why, as you've just heard from Ambassador Bokova, in September, Canada announced a $600,000 project with UNESCO and the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum to improve education about genocide. Canada's very proud of that role. You've just heard a little bit from Ambassador Bokova about our support there. Let me now turn to another sadly urgent topic, and that is our job of countering violent extremism. It's something that we need to do at home, and it's something that we need to do around the world. Like you all, I am a big fan of Irwin Cotler's, and so I'm going to quote a very important speech that he made, which has guided our counterterrorism approach. He pointed out that a principled approach to terrorism, security, and human rights starts with the recognition that there is no contradiction between the protection of security and the protection of human rights. That's a very important point, because we have to remember that at its core, terrorism is an assault on the security of a democracy and the most fundamental rights of its citizens, the right to life, liberty, and security. Counterterrorism promotes and protects the security of our democracies and fundamental human rights in the face of this threat. As Irwin has noted, counterterrorism, is the protection of human security in the most profound sense. Irwin has also pointed out that an equally important principle is that the enforcement of anti-terrorism efforts must always follow the rule of law. No individual or group should be singled out for differential and discriminatory treatment. Torture must always and everywhere be condemned. These are guiding principles for Canada's counterterrorism approach, as true today as they were a decade ago, Irwin, when you first laid them out. Grounded in a human rights-based approach, our government's work is focused on evidence-based support for prevention and intervention. In order to better prevent and intervene at home in Canada, we're establishing a new office for community outreach and countering radicalization. As an open, pluralistic, democratic society, Canada is committed to becoming a world leader in counter-radicalization. We really believe we have to do this right at home, and we're committed to doing it. The most effective way to prevent radicalization often starts at the community level, working with local leaders to develop early intervention tailored to local conditions. We are absolutely committed to fighting terrorism at home, but of course, much of the threat is beyond Canada's borders. Violent extremism is global, and the Middle East is a region of particular concern. That's why our government has announced an investment of over $1.6 billion over 3 years in our Middle East strategy. This is a comprehensive, integrated, sustained effort to defeat Daesh together with our allies and to help the children, women, and men affected. Canada, working with our partners, is fully committed to this campaign. And I want to assure you, and sometimes we forget to say this loudly enough, that this is a fight we are winning, and it is a fight that we will win. We're on the right side of history. Daesh is a hateful, backward-looking death cult. We can and will prevail in the battle against it. We need to have the courage of our convictions. On Syria, I do want to say, underscore, that our government is fully supportive of the targeted and limited U.S. strike. Our Prime Minister came out and said that in Parliament the next day. That was an important act, and we fully support our ally. And we also believe it's important to note the moral responsibility that Assad's two chief patrons, Russia and Iran, bear for the use of chemical weapons, and it's important for us as the international community to put pressure on those two countries. That is very much something that Canada is engaged in. In our Middle East strategy, we are also making meaningful contributions to stabilize Lebanon and Jordan, not least by welcoming now more than 40,000 Syrian refugees to Canada. These are people who are new Canadians, they're permanent residents, their home is Canada now. I mention this particular Canadian contribution to the region because, as we all know, the stability of these countries is inextricably linked to the security of Israel, and that is a core international value of Canada's. Since 2014, our counterterrorism program has contributed $14 million in work with other countries to counter violent extremism. We're now looking to invest an additional $13 million to prevent radicalization, with a particular focus on the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. Part of combating terrorism is cutting the financial networks. One specific Canadian initiative in this regard is our command of the Combined Task Force 150, intercepting trafficking activities at sea that are essential to the survival of extremist groups. We contribute to this multinational force to promote maritime security in the Red Sea, Gulf of Eden, Indian Ocean, and Gulf of Oman. When Canada works to counter extremism and terrorism, particularly in the Middle East, Israel is always a natural partner and a close ally. Israel is also a significant motivation. Programs like these contribute to Israel's safety and security, and that is a core Canadian international objective. Le Canada est attaché à sa relation avec Israël qui dure plus de 70 ans. Nous collaborons étroitement dans les affaires de sécurité publique et de défense, de même que dans le domaine du commerce, d'investissement, de l'innovation et de l'éducation. Nos populations sont profondément liées. Nous avons 390 000 Juifs qui vivent au Canada, la quatrième communauté juive en importance du monde. Nous avons aussi 20 000 Canadiens qui vivent et qui travaillent en Israël. Il me tarde de continuer de renforcer cette relation. J'assisterai à la cérémonie du jour de l'indépendance de l'Israël, présidée par l'ambassadeur israélien Nimrod Barkan à Ottawa la semaine prochaine, et ce sera un honneur et un plaisir pour moi. Je le répète, le Canada est solidaire d'Israël. Nous avons démontré un engagement indéfectible pour assurer la sécurité d'Israël et des voisins, soutenir le droit de vivre dans le paix. Nous reconnaissons le droit d'Israël d'assurer sa propre sécurité. Le Canada est acquis à l'objectif de paix globale, juste et durable au Moyen-Orient. Let me say, Canada is a strong ally and close friend of the Jewish state, continuing a mutually beneficial partnership that has advanced our two democracies' shared values and interests for almost 70 years. Today, we're proud of that. Today, we cooperate closely in public security and defense, as well as trade. And as trade minister, I was working on updating our free trade agreement with Israel. We're nearly done that. Investment, innovation, and education. Our people are also deeply linked. Over 390,000 Jewish people live in Canada, the fourth largest Jewish community in the world. But as a proud Canadian, could I say, I think it's the best one also. Much of that, you guys can argue about that, but my Canadian friends will support me. Much of that Jewish community makes its home in the great constituency of University Rosedale in downtown Toronto, which I have the privilege of representing as a member of Parliament. And I am so proud of the Canadian Jewish community, and maybe as an MP, I'm allowed to be especially proudest of the one in University Rosedale. There are also 20,000 Canadians, some of them related to Irwin Cotler, I think his kids, living and working in Israel. Next week, it will be my honor to observe Israel's Independence Day, hosted by Israeli Ambassador Nimrod Barkan in Ottawa at his embassy. Let me conclude by assuring you of this. Canada stands shoulder to shoulder with Israel. We have an unwavering, ironclad commitment to the security of Israel and its neighbors. We support Israel's right to its security, its right to live in peace, and we're committed to a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace in the Middle East. We stand with Israel and with Jewish communities in Canada and around the world. And we recognize, sadly, that now more than ever, that support is needed, and it's important to stand up and say it out loud. I hope we can all leave this meeting, with a renewed commitment to promoting peace and inclusion, to fighting hatred and discrimination and terror. There is a lot of work to be done, and I look forward to working closely with the World Jewish Congress and with all of you in the days and years to come. Merci beaucoup. Дякую дуже. Спасибо огромное.